Today I'm going to tell you how to win your national championship. The US National Championships is right around the corner. A lot of others are coming in the weeks after. And today I want to talk about tips and tricks on how to prepare for the event, what to do at the event, and just kind of a full synopsis of playing and preparing for national championships. So national championships this year are two things. They're Classic Constructed and Monarch Draft. Most national championships are Classic Constructed and Draft, and then obviously that draft format changes, and that Classic Constructed format will shift with the meta as well. But those are the two formats for this year. We're going to start with the Classic Constructed portion. So an important step, obviously, is first to identify the metagame, right? So there's a lot of tier lists out there. You might want to come up with your own tier list just to see what you think about it. I've got my website where I have my personal opinions and tier lists posted, but there's plenty of content creators and professional players that have their own tier list. But first, you want to kind of see a view of the meta, what the top decks are. You can look at recent events. A lot of events publish the percentages, like how many of each hero was at the event. So lately, it's been mostly Lexi is the most played deck, and then Icelander seems to be the deck that's winning the most. So those are the two decks to look at a lot, and then kind of make your tier list from there. And usually want to get a good grasp on the meta to start, right? Then you're going to want to pick your deck. There's a few things to really focus on when you're deciding what deck to play. The most important, in my opinion, is the deck you're most comfortable with. If you're not comfortable with the deck, you're not going to do well. So as long as your hero's in the top few tiers, I mean S, A, or B, I think as if you're in any of those, even maybe if you're in C tier, you're probably fine. Flesh and Blood's a very hero-centered game, obviously, and the most important thing is understanding and being comfortable with your hero. So the hero you have the most reps in is probably the hero you should play. The exception is if you're new or if you just aren't interested in playing your hero at the event, then you might want to pick just one of the more top played heroes. If you're going to go with a hero that is a comfort pick, though, you're going to want to make sure your sideboarding and your deck is built around the top played decks, right? So for example, my favorite hero is Bravo. I have the most reps on Guardian, so I would play Bravo. And I'm going to want to look at the most played heroes, the high tier heroes, so Lexi, Icelander, Dromai, and then also, you know, Azalea and Azuri as well, at least the S and A tier heroes, and have a really solid game plan into them. And then for everything else, because it's really hard to prepare for everything, you want to have a kind of default game plan, right? You want a game plan that if you're not prepared for them, you know, there's no way for these are almost 15 heroes here. It's going to be hard to have an exact sideboard guide for all of them and have enough cards in your deck even to have a game plan to all of them. You want like a good default plan or two, like, you know, this is what I plan to aggro, this is what I plan to control. Have those, know exactly what you're doing in those game plans, and then maybe have some more specific, precise game plans for the most played heroes. So this is exactly what I'm doing into Lexi, into Icelander, into Dromai. And then if I'm playing aggro, like Fi, Briar, Viscerai, this is what I'll probably do. If I'm playing against a control deck, like, you know, Prism, or I guess there's not a lot of control decks down here. A lot of them are at the top, but this is what my game plan is going to be, right? So that is the place you want to start for picking your Classic Constructed deck, right? Then obviously practice is important. Talishar is a great resource to practice. I recommend using Fabrary. You get stats. So, you know, this is like one of my decks. You get stats for how you've played into everything. I think these are, I'm not sure if these are my results. Yeah, you can have like mixed results here, but it gives you lots of stats on how everything's going, what you're winning against, what you're losing against, and then you can make changes from there. You can even see versions and stuff like that. So it's important to look at your results. I definitely recommend, if you're really serious about doing well at the event, putting in at least 1, maybe 2 hours into Talishar every day. It's not going to be as realistic as real life gameplay, but it's going to be, you know, probably the best way to get consistent reps in. Obviously, if you're on a competitive team, the best option is playing with your teammates, or if you have a locals that are really competitive, just playing with some of them on Talishar one-on-one is probably better than a random person on Talishar. But if you don't have that, it's still fine just to play against random people on Talishar, just getting in those regular reps. The more games you play, the more you'll understand your hero, right? Also looking at decks that have performed well recently, obviously a lot of these are Blitz right here, but on February there's a tournament tab, and you can see you know, all the heroes, and you can look at, okay, let's see what Michael Fang played in his Lexi list. He just won the most recent Pro Tour. His Lexi list is probably pretty good since he's one of the best players in the world, and I just want to take a look at this, right? If you don't know what to play, it's not a bad idea. I mean, a lot of people don't like net decking, but if they're a really good player, there's probably a lot of good reasons behind their list, and it's not a bad idea to take a look at it. The last step in figuring out your classic constructed deck is, in my opinion, listening to the professionals at that hero, right? In Flesh and Blood, since it's so hero-centric, there's a lot of people that are just highly trained specialists on each hero. There's Mara Ferris on Dromai. There's Mansant on Levia. I play a lot of Bravo, like I said, so I've been listening to a lot of Pablo Pintor. He is, Pro Tour champion. He's also a big Bravo enthusiast. He brought it to a recent event, and I think he got second with it. And he's, been on some podcasts recently that I've listened to about that. So finding people that are really good at your hero, even if you feel like you're amazing with them. I mean, I've played hundreds and hundreds of games with Bravo. It still feels impactful to listen to another person that's really good at the hero talk about that hero and just explain their thought process and everything they're doing with that hero at the moment. It's going to help you in the long run, right? So that's classic constructed, picking your hero, how to pick your hero, how to prepare your deck, getting lots of reps in, and then you want to take a look at the draft portion. So like I said, we have Monarch Draft this year. Monarch Draft is kind of a throwback, right? Monarch is one of the older sets. I think it was the 4th set. And yeah, it's kind of a throwback set, but when it came out, it was the middle of COVID, and it was really hard to get your hands on a lot of the draft sets, and it just didn't get a lot of draft play, so they decided with Dusk Till Dawn to go back to it. And so people have been playing it again, and it's going to be at Nationals, which is pretty cool. Monarch is a pretty interesting set. It's split into 2 talents, Light and Shadow. There's 2 Light heroes, there's Prism and Bolton, and then 2 Shadow heroes, Chain and Levia. This is a great article on the Flesh and Blood website, posted pretty recently by Kiki, who's another great player. And you can go and read articles like this. I recommend reading as many articles as you can find about draft. But if you focused a lot on Classic Constructed, or if you're just relatively new to draft, I'm going to give you a few quick tips today. So starting out, 4 heroes is a lot. And with an 8-player pod, that should be about 2 players per hero. Obviously, it doesn't always break down like that. You want to be, in the smaller number. So if you're the only person in the hero, that's the best case scenario. If there's only one other person, that's not bad either. And then if there's, if you're the 3rd person in a hero, then it starts being a problem because there's more of you than should break down statistically, right? But the kind of best option when it comes to drafting, especially if you're less experienced, is to stay open in a talent, right? When people talk about staying open, it means not picking really class-specific cards. So instead of just picking an illusionist card, I'll pick a generic, right? Because I can play a generic in any hero. So that's being the most open. But it's really hard to be open to all 4 heroes at once, especially when they all want to do such different things. So I recommend in Monarch to pick a talent to be open in, right? So the best one is, and the easiest one is probably to be open in Light. So Prism is the strongest hero in draft. There's probably going to be 3 or 4 Prisms in most draft pods. She's going to win the majority of the draft pods at Nationals, would be my guess, probably about 28% if I had to throw a random number out there. And so she is a really good pick and probably who you should be trying to get on the best, but Bolton is not bad either. So if you just start taking generics and light cards, that's probably a good place to start. And then you can see how many red heralds there are and red light illusionist cards and illusionist cards, and then how many red warrior cards. And you want to find the good cards for each. Obviously there's a few cards that aren't red that are good, like Bolton has V of the Vanguard, which is his specialization, that's very good. If there's Majestics for certain ones, you should go for that. But overall, the reds are kind of where you're gonna be led by in draft. They're the power cards, and obviously, like I said, there's a few exceptions that aren't red that are really good, especially Majestics. But overall, the red cards, like it's showing here, Express Lightning, Wartune Herald, are the power cards and where you're gonna end up deciding where to go. But starting by picking really good generics and really good light cards would be a good place to start. And then if you see any good legendaries, obviously Majestics that seem really powerful. Not all Majestics and legendaries are good. Most legendaries are, but not all Majestics are good. Just because it's a Majestic doesn't mean it's good. But if it seems like it's a good one, like Luminaris, for example, is very, very good, that means you should probably go Prism, right? And so that's kind of one way to stay open. If you want to be a little more adventurous, you could be open into Shadow. It's definitely not a bad idea. Shadow heroes are still strong, but they're just quite a bit harder to play. Levia, you have to really understand blood debt management. Otherwise, you'll just end up killing yourself with blood debt. And chain, you have to really understand deck and threat density management. Otherwise, you'll just fatigue yourself because he'll banish all his deck and you'll run out of cards, right? So both of these shadow heroes have a very good chance of just losing to themselves. Like you could run out of cards with chain, you could kill yourself with blood debt with Levia. And so you have to really understand how to play both of them. Otherwise, you will just cause yourself to lose, and your opponent could just block, and then you'll die eventually. Both of these heroes, if you just block enough against them and the chain and Levia player isn't good enough, they'll just kill themselves. So the light heroes are a good bit easier in that sense, and I would recommend, especially if you don't have a ton of practice in the format, to go with the light heroes and stay open to light. There's plenty of good light cards, plenty of good generics, and you can pick from there. But if you've gotten more reps under the shadow heroes, being open to that is not a bad idea either. If you want a good place to practice, the best place is probably the Runaways Discord channel. They are a really good Flesh and Blood team, have some of the best players in the world, and they have a really active Discord server that's running drafts all the time. It feels like there's basically a draft running 24/7. They use DraftFab, which is a great website that anyone can access, but it doesn't have an easy way to join drafts on the website. You have to kind of make them yourself on Discord first, and then you go to the website once you have your own group of 8 people, right? So their Discord really facilitates that. They let you draft online, and then you play those games on Talishar with the decks you drafted. Really good experience. I know players who have done almost 100 drafts of practice for Monarch before this using the Runaways Discord server and DraftFab, so it's a great place to go. And if you didn't use it this season, I definitely recommend using it next season. But yeah, a great place to practice even this close to the event. And if you're not playing an event this weekend and you've got a few more weekends or weeks to go, it's a great place to go and practice, right? Anyone from the world can go practice in there, and it's a great place. So once again, Talishar and online practice being good for both draft and classic constructed. And yeah, reps is important. Get your reps in, pick your classic constructed hero, understand all the important matchups, know exactly your game plan into those matchups, and then figure out your draft strategy. If you have time to get a ton of reps in, like if you've played 50 games of the format, you might be comfortable enough to play any of the 4 heroes. But I personally would probably just default to a lot of the times playing the light heroes, I should say, because they're just so much stronger, and I know I'm not going to end up killing myself with the hero, right? I'm not going to lose to myself. So definitely an interesting thing about the Monarch format. This will be different for other nationals with different draft sets. For this one in particular, when you have 4 heroes with 2 for one talent and 2 with the other, it's nice to know that. But thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, comment. If you want to support me on Patreon, I've got all of my Patreon deck lists that are regularly updated. You can view them as I update them, and you can ask me questions about them or your own deck, any advice you need. I really appreciate you guys watching. Good luck at your national championships, and I'll see you next time.